And to present and moderate this session, I invite Dr. Sopon from Subscribe. He's already next to me. The floor is yours, Dr. Sopon.
Maybe we just start here, and no need to waste any time. Let us invite Mr. Peter Lambert to be the first speaker. You may kindly come up to the stage and do your presentation, please. Mr. Lambert, yes. You have some slides, so I think you should stand up and on the stage here. Thank you. We have some noise. And then we will listen to the video of Professor Lee. And then we will have some summary and Q&A. Please.
Hello everyone. My name is Peter Lundberg, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association based in Bangkok, Thailand. I've been working with this association for about 5 years now. We are, I'm very happy to be here today in this important forum to talk about building's role in the energy transition, and I will try to give a perspective, talk about buildings from a technology perspective, try to introduce some solutions that might be or will be important in the future. Just a short introduction to our organization. So we are a member-based industry association based in Bangkok, Thailand. As I mentioned, we have 30 members, mostly corporations. Our mission is to promote the development of sustainable urban energy in the Asia Pacific. So we do a lot of events and capacity buildings and awareness raising on technology. We believe that a lot of technology that is needed in the energy transition is actually here today. So we basically need to create a discussion and see what is possible to do. We also do some training. We help cities in creating professional training in different topics. And so that's a separate entity we call the APA Academy. You're welcome to talk with me more about this later on. Well, first I want to touch on this graph showing the final energy consumption globally. And as you can see here, the thermal energy is actually 51% of the final energy consumption. And I think when we think about energy, or when people think about energy, we tend to think about power and transportation. Our thermal energy is really the elephant in the room. And in the energy transition, we're looking at the share of renewable energy in these different sectors. We really need to focus on thermal energy. I also want to touch on this graph showing ASEAN countries' various climate pledges at the COP26 last year in Glasgow. And you see 8 out of 10 have set climate targets or to be net zero target to 2050 or 2065. So all these countries are working on new policy to be climate neutral in 2050. So that's pretty good progress. So now we have to find solutions to reach these targets. I think Taiwan also has the climate pledge to be net zero in 2050. So cities are very important in the energy transition. They occupy 2% of the world's landmass, but consume over 2/3 of the world's energy and account for more than 70% of the global CO2 emissions. And as you can see here, we have a urbanization trend that's been going on for a long time. These colors represents megacities, which basically are cities with a population of 10 million or more. And today we have 33 megacities in the world. 17 of these cities are in Asia Pacific. In 2030, it's estimated that we'll have 43 megacities globally, and 25 of these will be in Asia Pacific. So people are still moving to cities. And look at buildings, so buildings stands for about 30% of the final energy consumption in the Asia Pacific, and a large part of greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see here global CO2 emissions by different sectors. Buildings operations stand for 28% of global CO2 emissions, and if you add another 11% if you count building materials and construction as well. So buildings are very important to look at. Space cooling is the fastest growing use of energy, and in ASEAN, cooling accounts for about 6% of the total electricity use in, let's say, non-residential buildings. You see here a breakdown of that. Cooling is about 60%, so it's something we have to think about a lot. Green buildings, I think, as we have identified green buildings play an important role as a driver to develop clean energy efficiency and renewable energy, and also to showcase new technology that can be kind of used in other buildings as well, or hopefully all buildings can be green buildings in the future. We can also utilize investment to increase competitiveness in the market, and of course it will also help increase property value and revenue. I just want to show this. Oh, this looks strange, but anyway, I'll just show you the green building development in Thailand. I won't go into it more deeply, but we have 213 certified projects of LED in Thailand, and the local Thai rating, the trees plus, we have 75 certified projects and 59 projects that are on the way to be certified. I just want to touch on the potential of renewable energy. I mean, we have a huge potential of renewable energy, and if you look at this map of Africa, you can see the surface area is needed to power the whole world if you use solar PV. So it's just a fraction of the Sahara Desert, in theory, that we need to power the whole world with electricity. And looking at wind farms have the potential to produce about up to 40 times the electricity that the world consumes. And you can see here an example of Singapore and the surface area that's needed with offshore wind turbines that is needed to cover the power electricity consumption in Singapore. So we have a lot of. So how do you implement this? How do you use it more? Right? It's not, the sun doesn't always shine, it's not windy all the time, so how do you match production and consumption? We often talk about batteries. Of course, batteries are one of the solutions, but it's very expensive. Another thing we can think about is thermal energy storage, basically using clean electricity when available to produce chilled water or hot water, and then just store it in basically thermal tanks, or it could be ice storage as well. And what's interesting about these kind of systems is that they are 100 times cheaper than battery energy storage systems. So I think that's important to remember, and also thinking back to the graph I showed in the beginning about the thermal energy consumption. Just quickly on cooling. Cooling produces about 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and about 80% of that is energy consumption. 20% comes from refrigerant leaks. So it's not only energy, it's also refrigerant leaks that contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions. And here on the graph you can see the difference in electricity consumption by AC systems from between 2017 and 1990. It's a huge change there. I think I would jump a little bit here just to save some time, but on the left here you can see what's happening. I mean, these are some trends that is happening now in terms of cooling. You see on the graph on my right, the number of cooling degree days is growing. Basically, we have an increasingly hot climate, so that means that climate change is driving, is increasing the temperatures, so the cooling demand is increased in the world. The growth of our economies are growing, so the GDP per capita is growing, and you can see a graph here in the middle, comparing ASEAN and Japan. and also the growth of AC ownership is increasing a lot. You can see here, ASEAN is growing much more than Japan. I want to introduce a concept that probably maybe is not new to you. We heard a presentation this morning about that from Singapore. It's about district cooling. And what is district cooling? It's basically a centralized cooling system providing chilled water to a number of buildings. It offers many different benefits. It can be up to 50% more efficient than conventional cooling systems. And you also need to install up to 30% less capacity than traditional systems. So often cooling systems are too large. 30% is a good number. It's also possible to integrate renewable energy, like I mentioned, using thermal energy storage, for example, but also waste energy, natural sources. Thermal energy storage is also very good to help to reduce peak loads. And these kind of systems are very efficient. It also uses much less refrigerants, so it also helps mitigating global warming and also reducing the urban heat island effect. Has a very long lifespan and huge market potential. All right. This is just an example of this cooling system. This is 12 buildings, offices, mixed-use buildings, retail, and so forth. Where you can see there's a total demand of 23,000 RT. Total space required is 15,000 square meters, and you can see there are chillers in each building. If you have this cooling system, you basically remove all these chillers from buildings, and you have a centralized utility plant. You can reduce the installed capacity to 30% and reduce the space needed for cooling with 75%. So that's the big difference, and that's space that can be used for other things. This is just a graph showing a number of district cooling plants in ASEAN. We have 41 active in operation and 12 under development. Malaysia has far the most of them. Some examples here from the Philippines. We have here a district cooling system providing cooling for 18 buildings, saving 39% of the annual electricity consumption. Here we have in Bangkok, Thailand, 70 megawatts, saving 38% of reducing total capacity, saving 50% of refrigerant volume, and also 90% cheaper for the residents. Okay, so that's just a few pictures there. Okay, I think I will. This is the last one here. So this is also a project in Bangkok. It's called One Bangkok Project. There's 16 buildings, including shopping malls, hotels. It's a very large development, the largest in Thailand at the moment. It has a cooling system of 133 megawatts. I think this is very important because this is one project. 16 buildings, one project. So they have a centralized cooling system. But if these were, 16 different projects built using 16 different buildings, there would be 16 different cooling systems, adding, 30% of installed capacity. So that's one thing we have to think about. All right, I think I will end there. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. So now, he was a president of the International Real Estate Society and professor at the National University of Singapore. We will have this video right now. Thank you. And then you can carry do your scanning so that you can get your paper. So now, Professor Louis, please. Professor Louis now is on the line. He will be in the Q&A during the Q&A.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lee. I am a real estate professor at the National University of Singapore. Firstly, I would like to apologize for not being able to be with you in person as I tested positive for COVID. The symptoms are mild, but I have to be in isolation. Secondly, I'd like to thank the organizers and the panel chairman, Dr. Sopon, for giving me the honor to speak at this forum. Let me proceed with my sharing. The title of my sharing is Green Shoots and Embodied Carbon. Climate change is a catch-all term for the climate impacts arising from the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. The most prominent greenhouse gases, which accounts for 3/4 of global emissions, is CO2, which is associated with fossil fuel combustion. Climate change is projected to have severe detrimental consequences for the environment and societies worldwide. It is therefore a global problem that requires a concerted solution to avoid catastrophic and irreversible change. The built environment has a vital role to play in responding to the climate emergency. In a 2019 report, the World Green Building Council reports that buildings are responsible for 39% of the global carbon emissions. In Singapore, we have made efforts to green the buildings. In fact, as of 2021, 49% of the green buildings in Singapore, 49% of the buildings in Singapore have been green. The Building and Construction Authority, BCA in short, has led the green transformation in Singapore. Under its ambitious Green Building Master Plan, sustainable targets have been raised and set at a high level, such as greening 80% of the building by 2030. The revised Green Mark scheme implemented in 2021 aims to mitigate the effects of climate change through driving energy efficiency as well as carbon reduction and other measures that address key sustainability drivers. On the academic front, many researchers have examined if there is a green premium associated with labeling a building green. Controlling for differences in building quality, rents are documented to be about 3 to 5% higher for green certified office properties, according to a research by Big IHOP and co-authors in 2010. The same study showed that green buildings on sale prices are even larger than the value represented by the direct energy savings. Much of the focus so far has been on the reduction of buildings operation emission, or OE in short. But operation carbon is only part of the story. Building consumes energy and emit greenhouse gases during all life cycle stages of construction, use, maintenance, and demolition stages as well. So in fact, of the built environment sector's 39% contribution to global gas emission, 28% of them comes from operational carbon and 11% comes from the energy used to produce building and construction materials, usually referred to as embodied carbon. Therefore, we must continue to focus on addressing operational carbon. While we must continue to focus on addressing operational carbon, we must now rapidly increase efforts to tackle embodied carbon emissions at a global scale too. This chart shows the whole life cycle emission of buildings, incorporating both embodied carbon and operating carbon. In short, OC refers to carbon emissions incurred from the use of buildings, including heating, cooling, and lighting. EC refers to carbon emissions incurred during the materials manufacture, transportation, construction, maintenance, and end-of-the-life phases. EC will grow in importance as the proportion of total emissions. Developers and designers need to be conscious of the impacts that our upfront carbon decisions will have on the whole carbon. Each material that we use represents impacts and reduction opportunities throughout the whole life cycle, and we must design with this in mind. For example, cement, which is the key ingredient that gives concrete its strength, is also one of the largest emitters of CO2 in the built environment. According to Carbon Cure, cement production creates 7% of the world's CO2 emission and is the largest contributor to embodied carbon in the built environment. We can reduce embodied carbon by ensuring maximum utilization of existing assets. Evaluate each design choice in terms of the upfront carbon reductions as well as part of the whole life cycle approach. Specify low and zero carbon products for all constructions, maintenance, and renovations, such as the land, in this case, the land lease timber tower, which is the tallest engineered timber office in Australia. We should also pursue circularity, that is, extending the life of building and its component through regular maintenance and reducing end-of-life emission through reuse and recycling. Metals, for example, can be recycled often without any loss in physical qualities. Recycling and reuse contribute to the reduction of ECs. In this LinkedIn post, the new 54-story skyscraper in Sydney reused 68% of the old tower structure. These structural elements represent a large embodied energy investment. It also carries large carbon emissions burden that cannot be offset by new constructions, even if we assume that new constructions will result in more energy efficient building. Let's look at another case study, the United Nations headquarters in New York City. The UN HQ underwent a major renovation in 2008 to 2014. As opposed to demolishing the complex and building a new, the United Nations decided to renovate the existing campus. While there was clearly multiple reasons to justify renovation of the iconic modern masterpiece, the sustainability aspect of the renovation was also articulated. The comparative study accounted for both the EC and OC and advocated for a better understanding and accounting for the true cost of demolition from the whole life carbon accounting perspective. It made a strong case for retrofittings and renovations. In fact, the key finding was if the UN complex were demolished and replaced with a new construction of similar size, it would have taken 35 to 70 years before the improved operating efficiencies of the new complex would offset the initial outlays of embodied carbon associated with the demolition and new construction process. According to Brookings Institution, some 82 billion square feet of existing space will be demolished by 2030. In the context of accounting for the whole life carbon of buildings, one will argue that the greatest building is one that is already built. Yet, the Brookings Institution lamented that few studies have sought to examine the environmental impacts of raising old buildings and erecting new structures in their place. World Green Building Council argues for a more holistic approach. That is, we must maintain a concerted focus on transformational pathways for both net zero embodied carbon and net zero operational carbon. To achieve this vision, we cannot address one without another. And so, we must take urgent actions to tackle upfront carbon while designing whole life carbon demand. So in closing, while we see encouraging progress along the road of greening buildings, it is still a long road nevertheless. The sector is a big consumer of electricity, and while the academic literature provides evidence supporting the business case of green buildings, what we have achieved today in the greening evolution is really a combination of regulations, benchmark, as well as voluntary participation. No country has provided any incentives as far as for calculating embodied CO2 emission other than the Netherlands, who require the calculation although not its reduction. However, some companies do engage in embodied CO2 emission assessment and decide to do so in anticipation of future regulations. For example, a REIT manager in the UK was reported to say that business drivers behind why we calculate embodied carbon are that we as a business have recently signed up to a carbon target. The reason why we are measuring embodied carbon is because over the coming years, we will inevitably need to report it, and we want to be ahead of the game. Indeed, organizations are under increasing pressures to demonstrate their contributions to society. In a New York Times article in 2018, the CEO of BlackRock was cited. Society is demanding that companies, both public and private, serve a social purpose. To prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it makes positive contribution to society. Companies must benefit all of their stakeholders, including shareholders, employees, customers, and the communities in which they operate. Finally, property developers, owners, and investors need to be aware that stranding risk will become an important part of real estate in the near future. In the context of real estate industry, assets can be regarded as stranded whenever they fail to meet future regulation requirements and future market expectations with regard to carbon performance. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we have a Q&A session. Now this is almost time. I hope we have a lot of questions. Any questions or any comments? You can contribute anything you like in related to this subject. Any contribution, please? You can have question or you may contribute something to our VFC family. Please. Ms. Salina, question or any contribution? Microphone, please. One more here.
I have a question, and it is very practical. Today in our country we have war, and a lot of buildings are destroyed. At the same time, we need to estimate somehow, to involve the evaluators, how to estimate not only the cost of the losses, but also how to estimate the possible revival of that territory with taking into account all mentioned trends which you have just mentioned, that we need to take into account the carbon-free technologies and possible solutions which already exist in the world. So how to make the proper estimation of possible recovery of that whole territories. Thank you.
The question is yours, Professor Kui.
I just wanted to clarify, when you say buildings destroyed, are you referring to specific areas? I missed the first part. Are you talking about natural disasters, or you're talking about buildings being taken down?
I'm talking about my country, Ukraine. It's already now in the war condition, and during this condition we have already destroyed even some cities. So it means that after the war it will need to be rebuilt. So before, it should be estimated. All kinds of estimations should be made, and how to make this in a proper way.
Wow. So this is going beyond a specific buildings to go into a whole city. It's about rebuilding a city. At one level, it is about looking at individual buildings itself. I suppose the issue between redeveloping and tearing down will be the structural integrity. Safety has to come first. Once you determine the safety, and then you look at the general, as your previous building stock, how much it was, like say you start off with 100%, because of what is happening in Ukraine, I suppose the stock would have been depleted, and those that are depleted, it is as you say, to determine how much is required to basically rebuild a lot of precincts, a lot of areas, and I think it goes beyond economics of just once you have identified those areas, it is an opportunity to have the new technologies to go in there. You wouldn't want to rebuild it as what it was, like what Peter was saying, it could be a new district, total replanning of a new district. I will say is that because apart from that, we really need to go on the ground to look at the what was the damage and what needs to be restored.
Yes. Any other question or contribution, please? But to Madam Katarina, question is that if this whole city already destroyed, maybe we may do a new zoning or planning to be more compact city instead of scattered cities, and maybe we have to do BOQ or something. If you want to build rebuilding, it may cost more. If you can afford, you may do that. Any other questions so far? Please, this is a very good opportunity for discuss this, please, madam. At the back. Dr. Ong. Only one? Yes, please. Mr. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ivan from Kuala Indonesia.
Yes, Mr. Ivan.
I have a question, particularly for
Peter.
Professor Boyd, but also Mr. Peter. In countries like Indonesia or Thailand, most of the houses that are sold and built by the developers are not necessarily the sustainable one. You know, the energy and self-generating houses, things like that. Because these are mostly more expensive than the regular houses. And the developers actually make money from the cheap houses that we sell. So how does the system should work if we want to promote sustainable technologies in our houses, if we still need to produce a lot more regular houses that are not so sustainable, not so environmentally friendly, in order to support this environmentally friendly products can be built.
Mr. Lambert.
Okay.
I can start. Thank you for that question. It's a very good question, and I think one thing that I mentioned in my presentation and that I can expand on is, I think, like I mentioned, the role of green buildings to introduce new technology, but how do we make that to trickle down to other buildings? And I think, looking also back to my presentation on district cooling, I mean, we have electricity, right? We have electricity, we have water, we have sewage in our society that our cities, our districts are providing to our districts, to our buildings in various ways, right? So I think, coming from that perspective, you can create policies that could also include other types of energy, like cooling. It could be solar PV cells and things like that, to really help to absorb these new technologies in not only green buildings, but in as many buildings as possible.
Mr. Ivan, what do you ask that if we do district cooling, how many houses enough for doing district cooling?
It's very scalable, it's very different. I think what we normally answer is that as long as you reach the technology benefits of having a centralized system, district cooling system, we can call it the district cooling system. So as long as you reach the technology benefits, it is a technology. It is a district cooling system. So I cannot answer if it's, but it should be more than 1 billion definitely. So other than that, it's hard to say.
Please, any other question? Yes, go.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Ong, Vice Chair of PIAPSI Philippines. The Philippines has just started going into green buildings. If you go to the landscape of the metropolitan Manila or even in Metro Cebu and the other urban areas, they have very few green buildings. Reason, number one, conversion, costs. But there are quite a few who are starting, and the architects and the engineers are having a hard time really convincing the prospective, the owners, developers, and the builders on that cost component. So I guess that the problem is really cost. We would want to do it for sustainable development. However, we cannot because of the income structure or the expenses that are going to be incurred. Vis-a-vis the income that you're going to have. May I request the two speakers on what should be done? What are the component costs so that you can convert some, well, for the new buildings, new structure, no problem, because they have to be concerned about the costs, about the expenses. However, for the old buildings, conversion to that of a green building would take a lot of pain and a lot of money components. Thank you, Dr. Sopon.
Officer Uli, please.
Very good questions. The previous question as well as this. I think I'm an economist, so one is to build a business. I have been talking to the building construction authority in Singapore as well. While they are moving in from the technology and engineering side, at the end of the day, we can push for green movement by regulation, by setting benchmark, and persuading individuals as well. But I think what will move the leader is we can provide a business case. And you are right to say that the cost of greening a building, either in retrofitting, may be higher, or for greenhouses may be higher. But there are literatures that shows that at least for office buildings, there are renters are prepared to pay a higher rental rates, and especially if you are talking about grade A buildings whereby you are attracting institutional, international investors. A lot of occupiers, even in NUS, right? We have just the university. They have just gave instruction to say that if you are to host any function outside of NUS in a hotel or whatever, it must be a green building that is not that is of platinum level. Right? Increasingly, a lot of tenants and occupiers will be demanding that. So over time, what you will have is that green building won't be just a competitive advantage. Maybe in certain countries, as you are starting off, green buildings will be a competitive advantage whereby you will be able to get a premium rent. Even if you don't get a premium rent, you will be able to get better occupancy rate, more stable occupancy rate, because of more stability, you should be able to get a lower risk in terms of your occupancy risk. And I would like to persuade valuers in the room to look and think of this. If you are able to have a stable income, by right of valuation of the asset should be having a lower cap rate, thereby a higher asset value as well. So these are business cases that we can talk about. But finally, even after the business cases, I think at the end of the day is a conviction that we believe that climate change is a global issue. It relates to everybody. Everyone has to do their part to do that. All right, and I think that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. You can ask in Chinese as well. Maybe you can translate it to Thai into English. Then you can kindly ask. But any other questions so far? But according to the question, the microphone please. According to the question, we have to assess
well, I guess it is true to all the countries. We are now facing a situation wherein, well, from pandemic for the last 2 years, we are now moving into endemic, and that is opening of the gates, right?
Yes.
But you can see that our buildings are almost half empty. Why? Because of the protocol, because of the proliferation of working from home. Provided you have a very strong internet, you can work from home. So that's why in the Philippines now, from a 300, 400 square meters, you see the big enterprises shrinking their office spaces to about 100, or even they allow employees to work from home, provided there is an internet connectivity. So would that affect also?
Yeah. So there is some paradigm shift in the office market, and also if we talking about the problem of the conventional housing, maybe we have to assess the economic life or the physical life, whether it is beneficial enough to renovate it. Any other questions so far? Last question, please. Last question, please. No more? Maybe the last question is when we will end. Any more contribution? Professor Lee, last contribution before we end.
No, thank you very much. I apologize again that I could not be there in person. I wish I could. Thank you.
You look great. You'll be fine.
Yeah, sure. I just want to address President from Katarina, and first of all, it's a very tragic situation in Ukraine, and but looking at what will come after the war, I guess we have to look on the upside, the opportunities, and what can be done now to build the most efficient building that we can. I mean, the solutions are there already. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities coming to the end of this. So, thank you very much.
Yes, I think the case that the UN headquarters that they renovate is very good idea. If they demolish, it will be a big fool or something. And another thing, maybe something like David advocates. This morning we heard something about the trees may live longer than buildings. We all know that the physical life of building may be 100 years or more, or sometimes 200 years or 300 years. But actually, the trees can be tree boring, they can be moved as well. It doesn't mean that they have to stay there forever if it is not appropriate. So we have to think of this as well. And another thing we heard about the environment like 3D buildings or something. Actually, they cannot be industrialized for mass housing. If we want to build a flats or something that cannot be done or can be done but not efficiently. You can see 1 hectare land. If we have the floor area ratio of 4:1 and we have 60% of the building can be lettable. This means that every unit is 40 square meters. 1 hectare it can build 600 units, you see, very high density. Or 1 acre, we can build 243 units of 40 square meter unit. So this means that if we living in high density, it's good not to destroy the agricultural area or green areas or even forest area. Even if we are not in green buildings, that's okay. At least we put together, not to live scattered. If we live scattered like building and with on the top of the roof we have solar cell, we may have we may need a lot of land for that. It may not be economical enough. And another thing that is like in the case of Japanese quality houses, which can resist the tsunami and really environmentally friendly, cost 5 to 7 times higher than conventional buildings. However, tsunami may come every 30 to 50 years, and so in high price, but maybe not cost effective if it is green. So on the contrary, another point I would like to point out is that now in Western Europe, we cannot get gas easily from Russia. So the termination dates of the using of coal has to be postponed. You see, right now have to be postponed. Actually, gas produce more methane gas 21 times than coal. But in our opinion, coal may be really like a devil or something. But there are studies from the MIT saying that coal are really good future. But maybe green peers maybe say something different. Last thing is that the words on SDG, ESG, CSR, GRI reporting might be some vocabularies that we often mention as stylish and fashionable decoration as well. From time to time, we have to keep this in mind as well. As a valuer like me or Professor Ui, in valuation, green buildings are market niche because there are not many, most of the buildings are not green buildings. So they are market niche and they can earn more profit than conventional buildings. Many rich companies like to stay there. So lastly, I can say that this green building is a form of facelifting, or is a facelifting for rich countries or not. And in politics, last in politics is that many large, gigantic or monopolized firms like to stay in green and intelligent buildings a lot in order to show that they are really responsible to the society. Like, whereas they exploit a lot to the society in other way, maybe selling gas really expensive or doing many business monopolized or maybe very toxic to the society, but they stay in green buildings so that they show that they have responsibility. That is why it might be some form of facelifting. So that is some observation. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sopon. Thank you to all our speakers and our audience as well for attending. Professor Joseph, we wish you all the best. I hope you get better soon. And that's a wrap for